Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. Welcome to another edition of Dungeons and Discussions. And today's topic is kind of short and sweet. It's AI, artificial intelligence. Hey, Disciple of Logris, it's good to see you. So this week's discussion is actually kind of prompted by last week's discussion because I got comments after the show about how, AI is used in solo gaming to enhance it, and I'm like, yeah, we didn't cover that, and that's my fault. We were kind of doing it low tech with pencil and paper and dice and charts and stuff like that, and I didn't mention AI. I didn't think we had enough time, so I figured today's show should be totally devoted to AI, also VTT and what you can do with it.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And hey, Keely Chow, it's good to see you, buddy. Taco Tuesday raid. Oh my gosh, people from Taco Tuesday are raiding me. Ah, cool. If everybody from Stone Loki comes over here, and we're gonna have a packed channel, man, because he usually gets like about 100 people in the morning. Can't imagine 100 people in here just listening to me talk about AI. That would be, that'd be awesome. Speaking of AI, I should probably note this really quick. Kind of toot my own horn a little bit.
Honk honk.
Honkity honk. Let me do this without hopefully boomering it too bad. Okay, so our book, because it's me and Graham, our book, Sex Bots Redux for Machinations of the Space Princess, which I helped write, is on sale on DTRPG for $4.24, down from $4.99.
Yeah, it's the Christmas in July sale, so everything on drive-through is reduced at the moment.
Yep. So I made the comparison before we came on stream today, and yes, it is now slightly cheaper, about like 20 cents cheaper than buying an Egg McMuffin at McDonald's. So, I mean, unless you're just absolutely, forced into a corner between food and entertainment, you can actually afford your entertainment a little bit cheaper today. Or at least for as long as this is marked down to 25%. So,
yeah,
if you don't have a copy yet, by all means get it. And if you don't want to buy it from DTRPG for whatever your reasons are, we have it up on post-mort.com. It's at Big Geek Emporium. It's at Giant Slayer Games. It's on Itch. We have it available in a lot of places. You pick who you want to hand the money to.
Yes, and I will be hiring someone to transfer my back catalog onto those other sites as well soon.
Sweet. That will be sweet. And yeah, you will need Machinations of the Space Princess in order to get it, but as you can see, it is also down in price, like $2, $2.40. So,
yeah, and because it's OSR, it is broadly compatible with any other OSR derived game you care to mention, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by all means, even if you don't use the stuff in the book to play the game, crib it, steal it, use it in your own games. I don't mind. And if you're like me and you're one of those people who absolutely has to have hardback, or has to have hard copies, I should say, you can get it on Lulu for $9.99. That's pretty cheap for a book. The shipping, of course, notwithstanding, might be a little bit expensive, so you may want to put it onto a larger order to reduce your shipping. But come on, man, $10 for a book.
They often have money off coupons, so it's worth doing a web search, or if you've got Honey installed, it'll pop it in automatically for you, or they sometimes show it up on the main page. Sometimes it's a discount on shipping, sometimes it's a discount on the total order, Sometimes it's a discount on the book price, but it's always worth looking. You get
Mhm.
5, maybe even 15% off.
And I am going to be doing kind of a little mini review on it, sort of more or less, sometime this week, maybe today. So, yeah, give you every reason to go check it out. Hey, Captain Fandom Nerd, good to see you, buddy.
And the cover art was hybrid AI and human working in harmony. So I guess it's not AI art, but cyborg art. I suppose.
Effectively.
Yeah.
So, all right, yeah, we are talking about AI today and what you can do with it. Well, there's a lot of AI sites out there, and it is, of course, blocked AI or braked AI. It's not like a full, cybernetic evolving intelligence like, Skynet or anything like that, But they have things out there where you can use visual novel creation software. They have, of course, Chat GPT. There's Character AI, which is one that I really like a lot. There's a visual. I think there's Novel AI also, which people can use. So
Yeah.
if you do a little bit of searching, you can find an AI site out there that will do writing, and it's not hard to do a prompt and get a story out of it. And where that's useful is, let's start with solo gamings, and that's kind of where we jumped off with it. I made the comment last week that one of the issues that you have with, we have basically two kinds of solo gaming that I think kind of everything falls into. One is you either have programmed adventures such as, a fighting fantasy book or a choose your own adventure style adventure like, the old D&D solo dungeons, and all the various permutations that have come out since then, which there are a lot of them, which is basically it's a narrative story style solo adventure where you make decisions, but more or less if you're not completely forced to play a character that you probably didn't choose, you're definitely limited to the decisions you can make in any given situation by the narrative. But usually the advantage that these offer is the stories tend to be very complex and have a lot of narrative elements that you might not get from a regular solo game, which usually involves using artificial matrices to generate locations, things inside of it, and NPCs with attitudes and stuff.
Yeah, and then you're piecing the narrative together around it.
Yeah. And I did make the comment. I said that, yeah, generally whenever you're using matrices to do a solo game, you're not really getting a lot of super big narrative, what is the word I'm looking for? I need more caffeine. Narrative devices like let's say, okay, you start your adventure in your little hex, and your character enters a kingdom. It's like, well, you're constantly having to generate all the different matrices and stuff for all the different characters that your character encounters, shops, NPCs, and everything else. But it doesn't usually involve something like, the archdemon is, going to take over the world in 5 days, and you have to go and find the special diamond in the dungeon and all this other stuff to stop him, which a narrative will usually give you. And I had people in the comments who, were telling me, like, hey, man, you're kind of selling players short. And I guess I kind of was. Most of my experience with this kind of storytelling or this kind of solo gaming comes from watching other people do it. such as the Basic Expert or our friend Victor Gorchev and other people who are on the internet and do solo gaming on YouTube. And, from what I've seen, it is pretty much basically seems to be limited to basic dungeon crawling or overland adventure type stuff. But it doesn't usually involve like a lot of banter or, GM narrative and things like that. So, if I'm wrong about that, I do apologize. I understand there's a lot of people in the solo gaming Reddit, who would object to that. It's certainly not my intent to insult anybody's intelligence or creativity. I'm just going by what I have seen and observed on a personal basis, and also what I have read in solo games such as Sacrifice or some of the other games I mentioned last week, which use big matrix tables to generate all of your characters and stuff. So how does all this fit into AI? Well, I have actually used AI and AI prompts. I've used character AI, and what I've done with it is I created a character that basically is a setting. I gave the character all the information it needed to run the setting, like this is what kind of stuff exists there. This is the kind of things that you would encounter, and what the political situation is like, and how dangerous things are, and how lively it's supposed to be. And the AI runs with it, and I basically tell it, okay, this is my character. This is and it runs from there. It tells you what you see, and basically you respond to it as if you would a GM. And that has been really fun to do. I have not used any random generators, matrices, or otherwise, had any kind of system mechanics to worry about when I do this. Everything is usually handled kind of within the frame of the chat, which means, you can kind of overpower the AI by what you type in. Let's say, the AI tells you is like you encounter, you see a troll frothing at the mouth or something. It's perfectly, easy for me to type in, using my mighty sword, I easily, cut the troll's head off, and it just kind of like, stops the encounter dead right there. So you are kind of a little bit on the honor system when dealing with the AI. But also, it can make some very, very interesting and complex characters to deal with. I've had some really interesting adventures with characters who started to become more and more lifelike the more I interacted with them, and the more you talk to an individual character, the more they will kind of respond to you and give you more options with how to deal with them. Now, I have seen the AI do stupid things too. Like I've seen it loop, where it'll say, okay, I'm getting ready to do this. And you'll be like, okay, do it. And it'll say, okay, well, then I'm going to do this. Well, all right. Yeah, go ahead and do it. Okay, I'm going to do this. The AI can be tricked. It can be messed with. It's not perfect, but it's not a bad way to go if, say your game cancels and you have nobody to play with, and you really don't feel like, sitting there rolling dice all night and looking up tables to figure out how your story goes. And
which AI were you using?
I was using Character AI.
Mm.
I have a subscription to Character AI.
I've done some experiments with ChatGPT, or in French, ChatGPT, which apparently means cat I farted. Which checks out with my rudimentary knowledge of French. And yeah, it's ChatGPT, even when you tell it to create a character and so on, you really do run into a lot of limitations. It will use the same phrasing over and over again, even if you tell it to write in the style of someone. And I asked it to generate a dungeon and sort of DM me through it. And it was the entrance and then straight into the treasure room, which I guess technically is a dungeon, but it had like one room. So yeah, that wasn't terribly successful. I've also tried to get it to play, which I don't know if a lot of other people have done. So me retaining the role of games master and having it play as a character, and it just tries to override you constantly all the time by telling you what happens rather than telling you what it wants to do, no matter how many times you remind it. So that's a bit tricky as well.
Yeah, that is a limitation I've seen with a lot of the AI, is it doesn't remember a lot of the times. So let's say you had a character that you really, really liked interacting with, and you, during the course of your narrative, you want to go back and talk to that character again. The AI has already forgotten who that character is. So that character may act or react in a way that is completely uncharacteristic to how they started out. It's annoying. I revisited a character in one adventure that I was doing, and they were totally not like who they were when I left them. So I spent an hour basically reminding them who they were and what their relationship to my character was and what we'd done. And it kind of got back to normal from there. Not 100%, but, you know, it resumed at kind of a, you know, an enjoyable pace. But it wasn't quite the same.
And the sex and violence filters can go off at weird times as well.
Yes.
They're all way too sensitive.
They are. And they're inconsistent too. I've had an AI describe itself and use words that I tried to speak back to it and would filter and stop. So
yeah.
And I think this is because it's not so much a true AI. It is basically, it's like the world's best story thief. Because what it does is it builds a giant database of interactions with people. And whenever you talk to it, it grabs from this massive database of previous interactions, and then it just kind of like spews things together and hopes that whatever it comes up with makes sense. And it doesn't always. It does seem to understand context pretty good. And I have noticed that it misspells things every once in a while. So that's kind of funny, but yeah, you can definitely use this to create a solo adventure. You can use this to world build, actually, because if you keep notes and you can copy what's been produced from either your responses or its responses to you, you can copy and paste that into another document and use that as basically your roadmap. Let's say if you wanted to build an adventure and you wanted to build characters in it, it wouldn't be hard to. And one of my suggestions for doing this would be to use another random generator. I've talked about this previously, and probably will continue to talk about it because it's one of my favorite resources to use. But Hexroll, which is a sandbox style, system, will allow you to set up entire areas pretty much as you wish, and then hitting the generation button and waiting a couple of minutes will usually let you have an entire adventure kind of more or less mapped out. I've used this for all my sandbox stuff. But if you combine this with an AI, see, like here we have a map, we have areas that you can go to, and let's say, we have NPCs. Let's just pick the first one we find. If you were to create PCs using, these the information that's in these as your prompts, you could probably create a halfway decent little dungeon and encounter. Like, let's say you use this as your map, and then you have your encounters and everything else. Well, you could type in all the little particulars of every area into the chat GPT or character AI, and it could give you motivation. It could give you, details about the room that may or may not be in this. And I think it's pretty cool. I've never tried doing it yet, but it's totally possible. And, hey, K Mike, it's good to see you. I know I'm going a lot this morning. I'm sorry about that.
That's fine.
I don't mean to. See, I'm doing it again. So yeah, this was kind of an interesting topic to get into. There is an area that we haven't. I think will involve AI pretty heavily, and we've talked about it previously on Week in Geek, and we've talked about it a little bit on Dungeons and Discussions. But virtual tabletops. Yeah, we've already kind of had like a little preview of what Wizards of the Coast's virtual tabletop is going to look like and how it's automated and stuff like that. I don't think it's true AI yet. I think all of what you saw in the video was a programmed encounter.
Yeah, and I think that the GM behind the scenes was running it. But I mean, we're already seeing some computer games incorporating ChatGPT or similar inputs and outputs for NPCs, and even text to speech, so that you can have open conversations with NPCs in the game world and have them be a little bit more convincing and less set than they previously have been. So, you get a text box where you can freely say whatever you want to the NPC, and the NPC will take that and then talk back to you. I can see a lot of pitfalls from that approach, but because you're bound to get outputs and things that people weren't expecting, or people finding turns of phrase that can essentially, hack the responses. But that's where we're going to end up going at some point.
I agree. And here's the funny thing. Most people who are listening to this are not going to remember the ancient, at this point, text-based adventure games like Scott Adams Adventure or Pirate Adventure or any of that other stuff that we kind of grew up with, wherein everything was told to you in text and you had to type in responses, but your responses had to use keywords, or you had to use a specific phrase said a certain way in order to get things to happen. Otherwise,
like
it didn't work.
Like the infamous Hitchhiker's Guide text adventure. Getting the Babelfish out was a real nightmare. You had to do everything exactly right.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite ones was I think it was called The Count. And that one actually had some graphics too, so it was kind of cool. But
most
yeah,
people
if you
say Zork, like Ironcaster has.
Yeah. Hey, Ironcaster. Yeah, Zork is a perfect example too. Yeah, if you didn't type in the correct responses using the right phrases and keywords, your character could die. Especially if it was like a time sensitive type thing. You were eaten by a grue. Yeah.
For me, it was Leather Goddesses of Phobos and
I remember
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, Disciple of Logres. Yeah, pick up the sword. I don't understand the command. Pick up the sword. Yeah, exactly. If you didn't put in the exact right phrasing, it could get confused and it could get annoying. Now I think
sword.
What's that?
Get sword was usually the right one.
Yeah, get sword, or take sword, or use sword. The nice thing is with the chat programs and stuff, it is better about recognizing context, especially fuzzy context. So I think what will eventually end up happening is we will end up getting this kind of programmed generative adventure using rudimentary AI that will recognize your inputs, and it'll be gaming. Usually you're generating encounters and everything on matrices, big giant tables of, here he sees attitude. This may or may not be the NPC's motivations. And let's say you want to use that for a game. It's not hard to use Chat GPT or Character AI or something and just tell it, it's like, hey, I want you to emulate this character, use these parameters, this is your motivation, etc., and go. And then start interacting with that character. And what's cool about it is it may not be perfect, but it will give you some responses that may give you an idea about how that character responds. So come game night, you have an idea about how this character is going to act given its responses to your character. And of course, you're a GM, you can modify it. You have the advantage of having memory and a pencil and paper.
Possibly more useful for play by email, play by text, where you could actually have it take over for the NPC for you. Because I know for a lot of games masters, keeping the personalities and so on of all the NPCs can be a bit tricky. But if you have like a descriptive paragraph and so on about them, you can just paste that into ChatGPT and get responses for you when the players do stuff. Yeah,
I also see that as being useful if you are writing adventures. For example, in coming up with characters, NPCs and stuff for characters to interact with, I always found it kind of helpful when modules would have like a little list of responses that NPCs would typically give to players if they asked certain questions. It not only did it give you a direction for how to play the character, but it also gave you kind of specific ways to answer players' questions in regards to certain things that may have been plot crucial. So yeah, I mean, I think AI is useful. I definitely see it playing a bigger and bigger part in our TTRPGs to come. But again, right now what we're dealing with is not like a true full-fleshed AI. It can seem very real. It can seem very much like you're interacting with a real person at times. And that's kind of a nice illusion to work with until you start seeing the, kind of seeing behind the curtain, as it were. You start seeing the flaws, and you start catching the repetitive nature of it.
Yeah, they do have weird blind spots. Like, a mark of good writing is that you don't use exactly the same turn of phrase or the same word, too often, too rapidly. But AI often repeats itself within a paragraph. With the AI art programs, they're getting better at hands, but they can't really do guns, and they can't do swords. Swords tend to have like multiple blades sticking out at weird angles, or they're just weird shapes. Or you get guns where you have, the stock coming off at a weird angle, and at the end of the barrel, you have the sight attached to the barrel and then a suppressor and weird things like that. It's like it understands the different parts of a gun, but then just kind of randomly kludges them together.
Yeah. And I don't know if that is because the programmer specifically try to inhibit those things or not. It could be. I mean, I'd be kind of hesitant to have an AI design a gun.
It works better if you model it on something. So like Midjourney, you can feed it an image and say, riffing off this image, create blah, blah, blah. And you tend to get better results then. And if you want a sword, you're better off saying, create me a large knife or a long knife. And it will get something closer to what you want.
Incidentally, our background that we use here, or that we're using right now, it's not AI generated. That is actually, it's 3D rendered and constructed, but I did all that work. That's not, an AI did not put all that stuff together. I did.
Yeah. So Kit raises an interesting point, though. It's more about production. I mean, we can get into that in a minute, maybe. But I think these kind of ethical questions don't apply so much to when you're running a game or doing a YouTube stream or something. I mean, AI art is a huge boon if you want thumbnails, or you want some images to flash at your players, or you quickly need a portrait of an NPC, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any ethical problem doing that, because you just search and grab something off the internet anyway. So I don't think it makes much difference for your home games. But there are all sorts of problems and weird attitudes when it comes to using AI text or art professionally.
Yeah. I found that was kind of an annoying thing. Is I got reports that well, the Sexbots book, for example, I hate to keep going back to that because I feel like I'm tooting my own horn too much. But when we released that, there were people who were actually offended by the cover art because it was AI, and they thought, oh no, it's pure AI, it's garbage, and that in the internal is going to all be AI garbage. And it's kind of like, no, I did all the artwork.
Yeah, and the cover was originally generated by AI. I've got an artist who I've been working with a bit now who takes AI art, cleans it up, makes it more presentable, and then I use that. So, like we were saying before the stream, cyborg art, really, because it's both man and machine. And I really like that cover. I think it's really good.
I do too. I thought it was sexy. I thought it was great. Clifton 3D, hey man, it's good to see you. I'm sorry I didn't get to you sooner. Did I watch Jazz's AI game? No, I did not. I guess I will have to try it and check it out. Now I'm curious. This is kind of an interesting topic with the AI, because it's an area where we don't have a lot of stuff to work with just yet, because it's not a perfected technology. The way I see it, AI works best when humans are working with it. As Grim was talking about the cover. The same thing goes with stuff that's generated by AI inside of the the construct. if you're going to use it for a game, obviously it's cool to take responses from the AI and use them as dialogue for NPCs and things like that players will encounter. But of course, what's going to make that NPC more memorable and cool is how you use that dialogue, the turns of phrase, maybe the tone of the voice that you use for the NPC. If you're one of those DMs that does voices, things like that, and it may also create some interesting elements for you to involve yourself with it as far as inside of a dungeon and stuff. Although I have noticed one area that AI is very, very lacking is in descriptions of locations.
I've found it to be okay for that if you give it a style or you tell it how much to write. So just typing, I don't know, to describe a cave, a bat roost with lots of stalactites, it won't give you much. If you tell it, describe a cavern with stalactites that's a roost for bats, and describe it in the style of Robert E. Howard and give me 2 paragraphs, you'll get something a bit better.
Oh, okay. See, I haven't tried that. I probably should, just to see how that comes out. I will experiment with that and see how it turns out.
The only problem with telling it to do it in the style of somebody is that it tends to use the same key phrases over and over again. And while you might associate those with the author, like I was saying earlier, a mark of good writing is not too much repetition, but it will repeat constantly.
Yeah. Can you imagine it trying to do Call of Cthulhu with H.P. Lovecraft style writing? Oh my God. I mean, a lot of what I mean by that is I'm not trying to say that Lovecraft is a bad writer. In fact, he was an awesome writer. But he uses a lot of erudition, to use one of his phrases, in his writing, meaning that he uses a lot of overly descriptive words that by modern standards would be considered archaic. Same with his turns of phrasing and stuff.
Yeah, even at the time, a lot of the words he was using were anachronistic, but that was part of the point, really.
Yeah. And if you spring that on players, you may just get a lot of strange looks at the table, especially if you're trying to run this for younger folks. And I'm not saying younger folks are stupid or anything. I'm just saying that they may not be familiar with, things like tintinnabulations, for example.
Squamous.
Yeah, Eldritch. They probably know Eldritch by now, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a common word around these parts.
Just a common word around these parts, yeah.
Perfectly cromulent.
Cromulent, there you go. but yeah, so that is something to be wary of. If you're gonna, I hate to use the term ape somebody's style with an AI, be careful that it's not producing stuff that your players are not going to understand. Yeah, I think the AI would choke on some of the Cthulhu mythos. Yeah, it would. And oh my gosh, look, it's a wild Victor.
Damn Dutchman.
It's the damn Dutch. Victor, if you want a link, let me know. I'll shoot it to you. We're on a really tight schedule today, so. But yeah, I do overall think that AI is going to have a lot of possibilities for gaming. It already does, but I think it will kind of take gaming into the next level. And clearly, it can write well enough that it has people at SAG-AFTRA worried.
Maybe they're just bad. I mean, so going back to the sort of work side of it. So my work process has always been to have constant stimulation going on, music or social media or something. That always, it actually helps me. It doesn't hinder me. But with all the social media platforms dying, rather than that or seeking feedback on there, I have been using Cat I Farted to give me some prompts. So if I get stuck, give me a dozen ideas for this. And most of them are quite pedestrian and shit. But it gives me that same kick to come up with my own thing, or to take something that it gives me and shift and change it. So I think it's going to end up just being a tool that we use to improve our own writing, or to provide a basic structure that we can build upon.
Yeah. I recently decided to tackle something which I've been beating my face against, which is 100 individual different mutations. I crapped out at about 62 before my brain said, no more. So what I started doing was, just for fun, I started throwing it at ChatGPT, and I said, hey, why don't you suggest some random mutations, and they don't necessarily have to be positive. They can be, bad. Well, it threw out a bunch of, kind of generic superhero-y mutation type stuff, stuff that you might find in X-Men.
No, more like cancer.
Oh, well, yeah. But
I'm sure there's 100 types of cancer, because there's just those.
Well, yeah. Cancer, yeah.
Yeah, it sucks, but
yeah.
It is good inspiration, because that's basically what it is a mutation, an out of control mutation.
It is. But yeah, it did start giving me some ideas, just because it was, it would also suggest how having, even a superpower could be negative, which is kind of like where I started thinking, okay, this is the direction I really need to take it. Like it would say something like super strength, but this could be a problem because the person could be so strong they would, be unable to, deal with everyday objects. And I'm like, yeah, if you're basically so overly muscular that you're destroying weapons and tearing down doors, and you go to hug the tavern wench and you break her spine, that's a problem.
Well, there's examples of that in actual, superhero media, like Rogue from X-Men. She can touch people, and it's a pretty useful power, because she can drain people's energy, but she also cannot have intimate relations. There's the kid from My Hero Academia, so he gets super strength and all the powers from All Might, but because his body is not trained for it, he whenever he uses, he breaks his bones and stuff. So
there's stuff like that. The other trick to that too is also doing it in such a way as to maintain game balance. Because if you want the mutation to be, bad, it's kind of like it has to be something that somebody would not want, but at the same time might still be useful. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like a balancing act when you're coming up with mutations. But that's just one example.
Yeah.
Where stuff like AI might be really, really interesting, and I haven't tried this. I may try it when we're done. Is coming up with new monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So early on, I experimented with ChatGPT. I keep wanting to call it Cat I Farted now all the time, but it could generate 5e D&D stat blocks pretty well. Playable, usable ones. Other games it starts to have issues with, but D&D it knows how to make stuff for.
It does pretty well with BX and stuff too.
Mm.
Now, one place I think it would be really fun to do, and I haven't tried this yet, and boys and girls out there in YouTube land, if you want to try this, I totally recommend this. I know Raji would love this. But Lamentations of the Flame Princess, James Edward Raji, has come up with his giant book of randomly generated monsters, where it literally has like nothing but huge tables of different things that a monster could have. I could pull up an example if we really need to, and I probably will. But imagine if you took all the different roles from that book and combined it into a monster, and then you threw that into Chat GPT and told it, okay, I want you to describe a monster to me, and then the characteristics of it, or using these characteristics, and see what it comes up with, and see how horrible it was.
I'm not sure. So good.
But no, go ahead.
No, I'm not sure if you guys have handled this, but the way I use ChatGPT, I use it as kind of like an editor, and you can train it. So I ever got it trained where like don't change my writing style too much, don't change the length too much, because usually I'm writing in like I want it like to fit in a specific spot, stuff like that. But I tell it to like improve my grammar, and it'll like spit something out. It'll like order some words around. It'll like fix like misspellings that I've done. It'll like put like punctuation in the proper place, and it's really useful for that. Like it really cleans up your writing. But like I said, you can train it not to like make it too fancy, because if you just let it do whatever, you'll like feed it like a basic line, and it just like spits out like a whole like Shakespearean paragraph based on it. So you have to like really like get it to tone itself down. But as like an editor, as like an alternative to like Grammarly and stuff, it actually works really well. And this is just the free version too. I'm sure like the 4th edition, which you can pay for, is even better.
Mm-hmm. And this is the random esoteric creature generator, and it's by James Edward Raji. Yes, go buy it. It's good stuff. But
nice.
Yeah, it's currently reduced on DriveThruRPG.
It is, and I've actually seen it in Books A Million of all places. So if they're selling it in regular bookstores, that's a good thing.
Wow, this goes way back. That was published in 2008 under Goodman Games.
Yeah,
that's a while ago.
Yeah, I had to be careful because some of the artwork in here, I couldn't show the cover. But yeah, you see here where you get tables for things like basic body shape, basic characteristics, and stuff like this. For general types. But using this book, you could very easily generate a whole set of characteristics, features, and stuff like that for your critter, and then throw it into Chat GPT and get it to talk about a creature that has these abilities.
Yeah,
and then throw it into Midjourney and get an illustration.
Ugh, can you imagine?
Though probably one generator or the other would throw a fit about most of the monsters that Raji would come up with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Though Midjourney now has an appeal process with a slightly more refined AI that will let you do horror stuff. So,
yeah. And keep in mind, our program, our show is not about telling you how to do your stuff. We're not definitively hardly telling you, like, this is how you must do it. What we're trying to do is give you ideas and options. We want to help you as a player, as a GM, and stuff like that.
No, I'm telling people what to do. Listen to me.
Damn Dutch.
Winders.
Yeah. Okay, Mike says, got some okay results with mutations sticking to body horror and biopunk themes. Yeah, there you go.
I thought for a second you said gay Mike, and I was like, that's not nice.
No.
Gay Mike.
Okay. Gay Mike. He's actually going to be in our Darwin's World game coming up this coming Sunday. So
yeah.
Please note that body horror themes can be disturbing to some individuals, so it's essential to be sensitive to your audience when using such concepts in creative works. Yes, that's true.
No.
I'm probably not of the warning label crowd. I probably should be, but yeah, I'm not used to putting warning labels on all my stuff.
I don't think I'll ever will. But I don't really
Yeah.
tackle like well, I guess guns is a sensitive subject, but I don't know. At the same time, like those are like pretty much a staple of tabletop games and have been forever. Like it's guns and fantasy for the most part. So I don't think I have to ever put in a warning. But
What?
I don't. But otherwise, I don't really tackle like sensitive subjects too much. So.
You put guns in your fantasy game, you heretic.
Yeah, I've been yelled at for that. So
I know, which is hilarious. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we said it on this program. It's kind of like any pretense of running actual medieval European history is like a joke at this point, because it's
Yeah.
like there's evolution and the involvement of magic, demons, and everything else would kind of tell you that it's like, the normal laws of history kind of don't apply.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you keep it to the shadows. I think that's what Raji says about Lamentations. It's like basically the player characters are going to be the only real magic users in the world, apart from your big villains. So it's still, there's weirdness in the world, but it's mostly historical because this shit is rare.
Yeah.
It's his outlook.
Yeah, and Lamentations has guns, so
Yeah.
there you go. I mean, yes, they're crappy, but still.
Well, it's like very like what 16th century, 17th century, something like that.
Yeah, 1600s.
Yeah.
Early modern periods. That's basically
Yeah.
Mid 1500s through 1700-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, getting back to it, AI has a lot of possibility for your game. It has a lot of possibility for your solo games. It has a lot of possibility for your world building. I haven't actually tried to get it to describe a continent or anything else, but one of my favorite genres is cyberpunk. So using character AI, I actually built a cyberpunk world, or at least a city. And I gave it prompts, using, of course, telling it, like, this is kind of what the city is like and everything else. But then I went back and I took actual excerpts from William Gibson's Neuromancer and tossed it in there. And my gosh, that place became really cool and dark.
That's nice.
Really quick.
I might have to try that because that sounds cool.
Yeah, totally do it. And that's a good use for it, in my opinion. If you like a particular author's style and you want to create adventures, settings, NPCs, or whatever in the style of that author, by all means, get you some excerpts from the web, build your character AI and tell it, give it your basic outlines, and then throw in actual excerpts from the character's work, because the AI works. The more stuff that you feed it, as far as the background, the more interesting it will extrapolate.
Yeah. What I used it for recently, because I'm writing my OSE Cyberpunk stuff, and I was working on the Street Samurai class, and I was like, well, it's kind of hard. I'm having trouble right now because there's like a lot of overlap with like the 15 other classes I've already written. So like I need to make it like uniquely Street Samurai. So like, I asked ChatGPT, it's like, hey, what kind of abilities would a Street Samurai have in a tabletop game? And it spit out like a whole list of like suggestions. And it actually like really helped. I was like, oh yeah, like obviously higher reflexes. And then I was thinking like, okay, how can I use that in like the BX context? But yeah, it really actually helped. So
yeah. My suggestion too, Victor, would be look up the Neuromancer. You could find Neuromancer in PDF on the web, because I've looked it up many times. Use all the references to the character Molly Millions.
Yeah.
And throw her into the.
Yeah, I have one of the abilities is called Razor Boy / Girl. So yeah, so stuff like that.
Yeah. Grim, what was that all about?
It's a magpie. They nick things.
Oh.
And you were talking about getting Neuromancer off online. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I bought a copy. It's just, I have a physical copy. It's not like I'm stealing.
Yeah.
Just using excerpts from it. I kind of wonder if that's going to become illegal in the coming years to be able to do that. I bet it will. Or I bet there will be licenses for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really tricky landscape at the moment if you want to use AI with anything that you do. You know, we talked about the art. I don't know how much human input makes it acceptable to use, but I couldn't do a promo on Whitechester because there's a handful of AI pieces in it, because otherwise the project wasn't going to get finished on time, given how ill I was at the time. So that's meant I haven't been able to run a promo on it. So sites like DriveThru and so on will discriminate against people that use AI. The Red Room uses a ton of AI art in their output. That's part of the reason they're able to produce so much so quickly and they're able to turn such a profit.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's their choice, fine. But that kind of bothers me a little bit, going completely that way. What I've been doing recently is using a mix of AI art that humans then work on and also commissioning like a handful of pieces like I normally would at the same time. So it just allows things to be more lavishly illustrated.
Yeah.
But it's a nightmare, man.
I'm still old school. I pay for my art. I get artists to do it, but it does suck sometimes because, like you said, the Red Room is able to like put out all these books, and like meanwhile, like I like can do maybe like a book like, you know, every like 6 months because I have to like, you know, get the basic expert to draw me some shit and have to like spend like hundreds of euros. So, but yeah. Whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
you could always hire that cheap bastard T-shirt historian to do it. So,
well, one of my projects that I'm working on currently is like 1950s like space opera, and there's like a lot of like commercial free art like that out there. So I already have like a whole folder with like 60 like actual like classic like 1950s sci-fi pieces that I can just use. So that's nice at least.
Yeah, there's a great public domain comics archive online that has a lot of old science fiction comics.
Yeah.
It takes a bit of work to upscale and tidy up the images, but they're really good.
Well, if you go to just like clip art sites, there's like literally like dozens of like black and white like pieces, like actually from the era, like, you know, with guys with like with ray guns and like rocket ships and stuff like that. So it's really cool.
Bug-eyed monsters holding busty ladies.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. All good stuff. I did do an AI art prompt once as RoboCop done up in Art Deco, and that came up really cool.
Nice. I love those YouTube clips where it's like Harry Potter, and it's just like Harry Potter, but they're all jacked, and like they're like talking about like the squad of destiny or like some horse shit like that. But yeah, and it's all like AI stuff.
But
anyway.
I
think I'm just gonna be a filthy centrist on AI art. I'm gonna do, you know, blended work. So cyborg art mixed with human art, I think.
I think that's probably the way to go.
I've got to hop out because my mother needs some help with some stuff. But you guys can keep going if you want without me.
Well, like I said, we're gonna keep the time tight. So we've hit our hour, and I don't really think there's much more to be said about it. So I think we've pretty well covered it. I mean, if we missed anything, I'm very certain that people will comment and let us know. And we're certainly willing to take input on it because, you know, that's how this one got generated is, you know, somebody told us that we didn't cover it and like, okay, well, let's cover that. So hopefully we did a good job, but if not, let us know what we missed. Otherwise, thank you all very much for hanging out with us, and we will see you next week on the next edition of Dungeons and Discussions.
Dag iedereen.
Bye.
Look, a Dungeons and Dragons rhyme!